I see movies on a high level pretty often. You go to the movies, and every year there's a handful of films on a really high level. But I've had two film going experiences, and not to patronize you, because I wouldn't do that, on a whole different level. Schindler's List being one, and this being the other one, where you walk into a room and you really don't have questions as good as the film. But I have a lot of ideas I want to explore with you. Okay. One is the question that people who will pay a ticket to see a movie will ask themselves: can I take this? Can I take this film? Because I've heard that it's tough. Mm-hmm. That's the question they're going to ask, and I've seen the pictures. Mm-hmm. What would you say to them?
I would just say to them that that is a decision that they're going to have to make based on what they've heard about the film. If they have any doubt that they might not be able to take the level of reality inside the sequences of battlefield combat, they should wait until somebody else they trust sees it first, who knows them well enough to say, I think if you close your eyes in 4 or 5 places, you'll be okay, or this isn't the right film for you, go see something else. Mm.
Sometimes the perception of movies is different than what it really is. I still meet people who will not see Schindler's List because they don't think they can take it. A lot of times they're women, and I don't mean that as a sexist comment, but they are. They just don't think they can take it. And yet the perception of Schindler's, the reality is it's about saving 2,000 people and not killing them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the perception of this film, although I think it is a little tougher in some ways.
It is.
But that's what's important about it, because it doesn't patronize the audience, and it tells the truth about combat.
Yeah. Like, I could have played it really safe and told just another World War II story filled with thrills, spills, and action and adventure. That would have been very easy for me. I did that in one's called Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the enemy was the Nazis, and another one called Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where yet again the enemy was World War II. And I couldn't do that in this case. I had too many people who fought that war wanting me personally to tell this story the way they experienced the war, not the way Hollywood has told us or informed us what combat was like. There's been very few films that have really been about combat. One of them was Platoon. Mm-hmm. And another one, in a strange way, was the early Lewis Milestone film, All Quiet on the Western Front. Mm-hmm. Now, in between those two movies, there have been other examples. Moments in Battleground are amazing. Moments in Walk in the Sun. Moments in They Were Expendable. But for the most part, war was meant to glorify. Therefore, by glamorizing combat, you glorify the heroes that fought those wars. And that was done for a reason back in the 1940s, and that was basically done to make people at home feel that the boys who were dying, your sons who were dying for a very great, important, necessary cause.
And that was a noble thing to do.
And that was a noble thing to do then. It served its purpose. Those were propaganda films. But they started a trend of World War II movies, and very few films, except for films like that story of G.I. Joe or Steel Helmet, that veered off course and told their own truths about that war. Most of the pictures used the war as a commercial springboard to make money, to profit from that war and other wars. And that was not my intention or our intention when we made Private Ryan.
Was your intention to show it as close as you could to how it really was, especially in the opening 23 minutes of this film?
I think if I showed this movie, if I actually shot this movie as close to how it actually was, I could not have released the movie. I would not have found theaters that would have accepted the movie, and I would have gotten an X rating. Forget an NC-17 or an R, it would have been an X rating. Mm. What it really was like was an X-rated war. All war, Vietnam, Korea, World War II, every war is an X-rated war. I did have a line that I drew in the sand, so to speak, of Omaha Beach, that I didn't cross. I got up to the line and never crossed it. People may see the film and say, well, he crossed the line for me, and that's fine in their judgment. In my own judgment, which is why I can live with myself, I didn't really put on film all that I could have put on film about war, but it is pretty damn close.
How do you honor veterans? Do you honor them by telling the truth, or by glamorizing, or romanticizing, or just by showing the way it was, showing the way it is?
I just think just in all honesty, you show all the honesty, and the honesty meaning that the death comes quick, and when it doesn't, you suffer, and you lose your best friends. And then you make new ones and you lose them. And then you're going on a mission that you don't think is right, that you think is immoral, that you don't think is a fair thing to be asked to do. At the heart of this story really is the morality play of, is it right to save Private Ryan, who has a mother to return home to? But these 8 guys might not be around to return home to their moms because the War Department has decided to do something humane. Maybe it's a public relations mission they're on, but they all argue about it. The larger context of this movie is World War II and the Normandy invasion, but the story and what really made me want to tell it, was those moral questions.
Is this a film that you would invite all World War II veterans to see?
Yes, I would, but I would say the same thing to the World War II veterans that I said to the Holocaust survivors when I made Schindler's List. That is, many of you will find it harder to watch this movie than, unseasoned, soldiers who never fought a war and don't know what combat's like. The toughest audience to get into a theater to watch this movie is actually the audience I made the picture for, which is the veterans. And it might be too tough for a lot of them, as Schindler's List was, in many cases, too tough for the actual survivors of the Holocaust to see.
You've made a film that really doesn't comment, it just shows. It's not a film about beating you over the head with a message. Tom Hanks' character has kind of a pretty good dark side going on.
Yes, he does. Yes.
Considering the circumstances, it's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not about commenting. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do. Very 100%.
What do you...
Editorializing in a movie is what most movies are all about. And you see so many movies every year, you know that almost every scene has an editorial parenthetical comment from the writer or the director, that kind of explains and justifies the existence of the scene of the picture. And there's a lot of, and that's just storytelling. That's just good storytelling. But I think there's a good story to be told here, but I didn't want to editorialize it all. I wanted to let the audience do the editorializing. I didn't want to do that for them.
Did you end up with the film you set out to make?
Yes, I did. I ended up with a film better than I set out to make, which,
Does that surprise you?
Yeah.
That surprises me that you would say that.
Yeah, because I made the movie in continuity. And by simply shooting the movie in continuity, starting in the Higgins boats and ending at the Memorial Cemetery, in France, the movie told me what it needed to become. Every single day I was informed and re-informed of how far to go, where to take it, and what to tell the characters, and how to rewrite the script. And I hadn't made a movie in continuity, my goodness, since E.T. It's been a long time since I made a picture in continuity.
Yeah, a lot of times just shooting it doesn't make sense.
What happens a lot of times in the movie business, you shoot the last scene, the love scene, ultimate kiss first,
right,
and you shoot the beginning last, and you shoot the middle all over the place. That's an economical consideration when you're watching your budget. I watched my budget on this picture very carefully, but I did shoot it in continuity.
When you watch Tom Hanks in this film, in your film, he speaks volumes a lot of times without saying anything. I find him more mature in this film. Maybe it's because the character's playing than anything I've seen him in. He's a very mature human being.
Yes, he is.
With a lot of responsibility.
Yes.
What jumps out about him in this film for you?
Just that he has a hidden agenda, and we trust there is one because Tom Hanks, always has had one. I think people trust Tom Hanks, the personality, but I think the amazing thing about Tom Hanks is he is such a chameleon as an actor. He can play all these different characters, from the character in Philadelphia to Forrest Gump to the young boy in Big. I mean, he is such a actor of 1,000 faces, and yet there is something inside Tom that, whether he chooses to show us what's inside of him from film to film, we just trust that there's a constant there that makes us comfortable watching him. It's a constant in all of his roles. There is one person there we can trust.
I'll ask you a question. It's a little more introspective about directing. If you took away any sense of income or publicity or notoriety about what you do, and it just gets down to the moment of doing it, of making a film, of directing, of working on that set and editing, what do you really love about what you do?
I mean, what phase of it do I love?
No, just, I guess, in your heart. What do you really love about making films if you didn't make a dime doing this?
I tell you, the thing I've always loved about making films is that you start with nothing and you wind up with something. Sometimes you start with nothing, you wind up with nothing, too. But you aspire to wind up with something. And I love the idea, especially with original stories, of pulling something out of thin air, and in a year it's somebody else's reality. And that is the endorphin high that I need to keep doing this job, which I love to do.
Was there ever a time where you considered not making films? after you started?
No, well, yeah, when I was making Jaws, I figured life's too short.
Wow.
It was such a bad
Been
experience.
books written on that, hasn't there?
Exactly. That was the only time I really thought about quitting and going into something else. But when I realized didn't know how to do anything else, I realized I would just have to recover from it.
Do you find directing as fulfilling now as when you started?
More.
Why?
The older I get, because now I'm able to pick and choose my projects. I don't mean I didn't ever have that right before, but now that I'm older and I've got 7 children and they're all growing up and they're all requiring different things of me, I'm much more interested in stories that they need to know about someday. Not now, because I wouldn't show them Ryan now, they're too young. But someday, you know, I'd like them to see my last 3 movies, which they haven't seen yet.
My father was on 3 ships in World War II. 2 of them were sunk. He was a survivor twice. He was in the Pacific Fleet, Guadalcanal, and some of the big Pacific theater. My brother died in Vietnam when I was 15, was bit by a mosquito in Saigon and died of encephalitis. And I'm a sole surviving son. That law kicked in for me because I was the last year of the draft.
Wow.
Thankfully, I had a high number. I didn't have to go anyway, but lower number, that would have kicked in. So there's a connection. But after seeing Private Ryan, the first thing I thought of is to go back to my hotel room and call my father and say thank you. It's a very simple gesture. It's not about talking about it or dialogue, but it's about, because I think your film crosses the lines from just those that worked in the European theater as well as everybody.
Yeah.
You speak volumes to them. It's kind of a responsibility. You feel a responsibility?
I feel a responsibility to talk to you about it right here, you know, and I feel a real duty to what my dad did for me, to give me the life that I'm giving my children. And I really made this film to say thank you to my father and to all the veterans that fought in that war, and not just that war. I just want to say thank you to everybody that ever fought and died and fought and lived, you know, in all these wars. Many of them sadly needless, and a few of them essential, like the Revolutionary War, World War II, essential wars. But you know, my whole thing is I used to drive by. There's a memorial cemetery in Westwood. I used to drive by it every day and never looked at it. Didn't mean anything to me. And then as I grew up and I got a little more conscious and self-conscious about what I wanted to give to my kids, and when I made Saving Private Ryan, what I hope people would do is next time they drive past a veteran cemeteries, they just look at it and just very quietly say, you know, thanks. Because I don't think we really realize what World War II could have become, how the outcome been slightly different.
Isn't it amazing, too, the responsibility that if you make a bad film about World War II, that it doesn't really honor them?
No, it doesn't honor them at all.
That the importance is to do it well?
Yeah.
You feel that when you were shooting this?
Yeah, I felt like I think what pushed me to make this story graphically honest was that I felt that I didn't want to be just the caboose on a long train of war movies, you know, spanning 60, 70 years of Hollywood history that used their sacrifices to kind of support the adventure and the glamour of war. And I find there's no glamour in war. You know, you talk to anybody from Vietnam, Korea, or World War II, and they get very upset with you if you tell them that your favorite film was The Sands of Iwo Jima.
Yeah, well, most of the stories that they tell are unspeakable. They still can't do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Man, good conversation.
It was a great
Yeah,
conversation.
I love that.
That was the best conversation of the whole
Hey,
day.
Stu,